The third issue that conflicts with our pro-global strategy is the homogeneity of EROC society. This is also reinforced by the singular focus in the AI sector and makes citizens less adaptable for the future. We will discuss three main policy areas. These are the job market, corporate management, and education, with 4, 3, and 3 sub-policies respectively.
So our first policy is to use this situation and promote EROC as a renowned destination for high-end luxury tourism and arts, similar to present-day Dubai or Paris. And we have formulated 2 main initiatives for this. So our first innovation complements our first policy. It's propaganda to promote EROC as an arts and high-end tourist destination. We can implement this through several stages. First will be propaganda through social media influencers. So in our second policy for improving the job market, EROC will fully utilize one of the biggest marketing tools of modern times, social media. As I mentioned before, with the vast increase of SNS influencers, EROC can become a pioneer in the creation of social media usage and promotion by the creation of an official influencer vocational school. Okay, our third policy is to do with startups. Currently, EROC's economy is disproportionately concentrated on large conglomerates. So in order to increase employment and diversify the economy, EROC needs to foster entrepreneurship and innovation. Our last and perhaps most important job market policy is to limit working hours. In EROC, where the unemployment rate is 54%, the working class is facing high stress levels, and there is extreme competition among individuals in this society. According to present research, working for shorter hours actually increases productivity and efficiency. Furthermore, it's expected, of course, that because of this law, there will be a significant increase in the number of job openings. For example, jobs with long hours will employ 2 people rather than 1, so the employment rate can increase.
Now let's move on to policies for corporate management. The more EROC society develops its AI, the more important the value of data becomes. In a digitalized society like EROC, the contemporary tax system is not adequate since it doesn't impose as much tax as it should on the large AI companies. One way to solve this problem is to tax companies on the amount of data they collect from users. Implementing this data tax system has several benefits. It not only raises the government budget, but also eliminates the concentration of wealth and power in corporations. Our second innovation is the software to support this data tax policy. A system measuring the amount of data collected and classifying it into different types, such as personal information, location information, monetary information, and others will be implemented. Our sixth policy is for workspace diversification. One of the major problems of EROC is the non-working population who are detached from the political and social life. With this in mind, a tax cut policy for cooperating companies will be implemented. Our seventh policy is the establishment of a government body that is responsible to design policies on AI ethics and regulate their implementation. This body is organized with 3 core values in mind. First, any AI system should be designed in an aim to supplement human activities and tasks rather than downright replace them.
So some of our most important policies are in education. We've established that in this scenario, the private education system is elitist, allowing the rich class to pay for better teaching. Therefore, our 8th policy is a transitional phase out of the private sector in high school education. So through this process, education can become equal for all EROC citizens. Our 9th policy is in fact perhaps the most important, and it's the namesake of our team. This is the implementation of GOOSE, along with a reform of the existing title. Most importantly, the new policy will eliminate the harsh pass-fail cutoff. So meanwhile, GOOSE will be implemented as an alternative pathway. GOOSE stands for General Occupation-Oriented Student Examination. It allows students to gain higher education in subjects that have been previously regarded as pretty much irrelevant in the AI-driven society of EROC. So our final innovation is the GOOSE curriculum. GOOSE will have 3 main streams, several streams. These are sports, art, hospitality, and business, though more could be added. Our final education policy is an international exchange program.
We've introduced new policies in 3 areas: the job market, corporate management, and in education.
Thank you for your innovative proposal. And now we move on to time machine cruise.
Our depiction of a good society has three values: equality, humanity, and self-realization. In an equal society, socially aware people do not justify certain classes for their attributes. Many social issues are derived from this unemployment. First, we have come up with an AI-free all-time competition. A human-centered cultural competition, the HCC, is a nationwide mega event for the top-ranked participants of AI-free competition. The AI competitions and the HCC give more opportunities for self-realization and employment. Another duty of the ministry is to open up the trainings for the competitions. We do not want our competitions to be open for certain classes only, as it will create more discriminations. There are online and offline accesses. Three Humans is an online platform that facilitates access to the competition. It means of the people, by the people, for the people from AI. Branching out overseas would bring more jobs. We decided to provide political and economical support for more domestic companies to expand abroad. We have welfare to help the people employed abroad. The universities and companies will be allowed to form partnerships for overseas internships, and the governments will provide subsidies. So far, we have introduced policies for employment crisis. They can be divided into two groups, opening up the competitions and branching overseas. With the support of the ministry, AI-free competitions and the HCC will be held. Also, the companies will be strengthened to grow the economy of the EROC.
As only 5% of students can pass the title, now students only learn how to compete with others, suffering excessive academic stress. Here are our 4 policies and 2 items that we suggest. Our first 2 policies are about changing assessment criteria for the students under 16. For the students under 16, they will be evaluated into 3 methods: radiograph, written sentences, and task bar. These 3 evaluations, students under 16 will keep studying as they will focus on their own improvement and strengths. In order to make those policies real, we came up with this new idea named EduSupport. This is the device which contains 4 sections: My Page, Homework, Test Game, Test, and Game. Our third policy is about adding new subjects to public education, plus allowing changes of the curriculum for students above 15. Meanwhile, in high school, we added 2 total curricula, one for HCC and one for the border between art and technology. Next part of this policy is about educating social awareness improvement. By adding this to formal education, rifts between the classes and discrimination between the people will be reduced. Using this new educational software, students will be able to understand others' minds in different situations. With the implementation of these policies and new ideas in education, we expect numerous positive effects to be followed. First, the number of students who drop out of schools will be decreased by changing the way of evaluating and training, as well as by giving them a chance to change their curriculum. In addition, the conflicts between the classes will be eased by social awareness improvement education through VR.
We will now move to a discussion section where both the teams will be given 10 minutes to prepare for the Q&A session soon to follow. We would request all the teams to kindly join the session at least 2 minutes before the start of the Q&A session. During the Q&A session, I would like to encourage all of the participants to actively take part and ask critical questions, but bear in mind to maintain decorum and mutual respect. So in your proposal, I don't see any policy that focuses on changing the current basic income support system.
As far as our proposal goes, we intend to keep the basic income the same. However, in our written solution, we do have a potential proposal for once the unemployment rate from 54% decreases down a significant amount, we can then reform later on the basic income system so that it becomes an unemployment welfare rather than a universal basic income system.
So our policy is focusing right now on solving the issues that we see in this scenario right now. This involves keeping the basic income. Obviously, potentially once the culture of AROC has changed significantly, the basic income will be less necessary.
How many people are gonna benefit from it and how much? Like what percentage of the population gets the prize?
From AI competition, we expect about 30 to 40% of the people lined up by their scores will benefit with the cash awards. And with the HCC, the top players gonna get the awards, and those awards will be like really similar to that ones in the Olympics.
If you keep the basic income support system, if you see how much government spends on that, how would you have funds for any kind of change or the innovative policies that you try to implement?
So what we're planning to do is to refine the existing tax system to account for increased digitization of the economy. And the effect of that will be limiting the concentration of wealth in a handful of companies and raising the budget for education and other policy reforms.
So basically all of our policies work together, including our policies for increasing the job market in tourism. We expect that will bring foreign investment and money into AROC as well, which can be used to self-sustain the investment needed in that area.
From the HCC, because it's a nationwide event, the audience is gonna pay to watch the games, and maybe the tourists can come into AROC to pay and watch the games. And the Three Humans is a platform, and it has all the broadcasting rights, so it's gonna also benefit a lot. And we will accept the sponsorships from the companies for the players and the games, so I think that will help us too.
So what I was wondering was, aside from the hospitality management, what are the streams that the Goose graduate or GEES go into?
Goose will have several streams. Obviously, one of these will be the hospitality management that will go directly into the human service sector. I think even more a significant job area than they are today. And that can become a formal education stream that leads to employment.
So we understand your point that helping domestic companies expand to overseas markets will ultimately increase their revenues and will create some jobs. But how are AROC citizens benefiting from any of this? So basically, after all that explanation, the real question is that this policy number 9 is losing all the benefits. Like it has failed to create any significant number of jobs for AROC citizens, and it's transferring AROC's funds to overseas territories and is only strengthening private corporations. So my real question was, what has AROC gained from this policy?
The purpose of Policy 9 is to actually support only the domestic companies to branch out overseas. And thus the companies that has already branched out overseas far are not really the target of the subsidies. And for the overseas branches for them, it needs to hire the workers from AROC. So it has to hire AROC citizens.
I have a question to the Goosebrain team. I appreciate the innovative ideas that you shared with us, but I think there can be some cons of banning private education, like the violation of freedom and like the potential degrading of the quality of education. I would like to listen to your opinion about potential problems of banning private education.
We also recognize that in immediately banning private education, there would be too much of a shock on the job market for education. There would be too many teachers unemployed. We agree with that. Therefore, the policy we implemented was a slow phase out of private education while simultaneously increasing the quality of the public department.
But if you see at the statistics that we gave you, 41% of the population of Iraq is already working on arts and services, right? And you kind of take that portion out. And then in AI, what I understand that you guys did is you just make it twice as big based on decreasing the number of working hours, right? So does that essentially solve the problem?
So in terms of services, we we mentioned how we want to expand the luxury tourism and we want to expand the AI sector. And our goal in implementing this policy was that we wanted to provide a different stream of entertainment and create new economic sectors.
So my question is, will your policies laid out here make the world a better place for your own generation who will be in their 70s in 2071? Will it be a good place to, will your policies actually matter at all to your own age group?
So the way we designed our policies is that it targets certain issues in society that are universal. In education, the problem of private education and an unjustified or unsupported public education system has been throughout history since we've had society.
So we have, from our policy, we stated that we want to flourish and create a startup ecosystem. As we know that in the future, innovation is very important. However, we've seen that in AROC itself, large conglomerates is taking over rather than startups. So and business scholars often agree that actually bigger companies often struggle with innovation.
Obviously, perhaps we would have families that are affected by the stresses of life in AROC, and so of course it would affect all of society.
Our belief is that each generation has their own culture. So we can add such competitions in the AI-free competitions and the HCC so they can still enjoy it. And even further, we can put an age division in the HCC so that in an age divisions, some old people can be at the top, can have the top rankings in their division. But then in the overall competition, maybe one or two young people who join the competition we might get the top scores or not. AI competition and the HCC, and allowing domestic companies to branch out overseas, changing the academic evaluation methods and preparing social awareness improvement training. We changed the academic evaluation methods. Here are two causes behind the intense academic competition. One is the educational system that puts students in a rank, and another is having no plan B for the student.
Thank you, Time Machine Cruz. Now, Goosebrain.
Our policies revolve around the ideologies of reshaping AROC into a pro-global, egalitarian, and neo-humanist society. Our policies and innovations work together to tackle AROC's issues through the increase of the service sector and promotion of the arts and tourism. Then, corporate monopoly is restrained through the data tax system, as well as AI ethics regulations, upholding our very neo-humanist ideal. This way, AROC's societal problems, including hypercompetitiveness, stress, and high suicide rates, will be mitigated.
Thank you for your valuable conclusions and innovative ideas. I now officially declare this debate closed. I would like to thank the teams for participating and bringing up original ideas that gave life to the current scenario. I would like to express my gratitude for the professors for their thought-provoking and valuable questions. Good luck of the both teams for qualifying, and hopefully see you.